All right, so we're diving deep into the Son of Sam case, one of New York City's darkest moments.
A case that still fascinates and terrifies people all these years later.
Exactly. And you're here because you want to go beyond just the headlines, right? We're going to unpack the disturbing life of David Berkowitz, try to understand the why behind these horrific crimes.
And it's a life story that reads, in many ways, like a textbook case. When we look at the development of a criminal mind, of those risk factors, instability, trauma, it's like someone took all those elements and combined them into one life.
It's almost unbelievable when you lay it all out. So let's start from the very beginning. Berkowitz, he wasn't even born with that name. He was born Richard David Falco in 1953 and then adopted almost immediately.
Right, and to add to that, at just 14 years old, he loses his adoptive mother, Pearl, to cancer.
I mean, that's got to leave a mark on anyone, right? To lose a parent at such a crucial age.
Absolutely. Losing a parent during those formative years is traumatic for anyone. But then imagine being in Berkowitz's shoes, already carrying those feelings of abandonment from being adopted. To lose the only mother he knew at that point in his life. That likely intensified feelings of isolation and anger. It's a tragic trajectory.
And it's like, to make matters worse, he finds out he's adopted right around the same time, adding another layer of rejection to an already horrible situation.
Exactly. It's like a double whammy of abandonment. And this is all before he even reaches adulthood. Then, at 18, Berkowitz joins the army, serves in South Korea. You almost wonder if he was hoping some structure, some purpose could ground him.
But even that didn't really help, did it?
No. Reports suggest he was very much a loner during his service, potentially struggling with drug use. And it's striking because even with the camaraderie and discipline that the military provides, it seems it couldn't quell the darkness that was growing within him.
So it's like, whatever was going on with Berkowitz, it ran deeper than just his environment. There were some deeper psychological issues at play.
Right. And when he returns to civilian life in 74, that is like all of that unaddressed turmoil, all of that baggage is simmering beneath the surface. He bounces from job to job, eventually landing a gig as a postal worker.
And that's when things take a dark turn, right? With the arson.
Yes, the arson. And that's a classic example of what we call expressive violence. Which isn't to say he wasn't thinking about his actions, but expressive violence means they weren't about achieving some goal, like insurance fraud. It was about the act itself, the release it gave him. Almost like a pressure valve, a way to alleviate his internal turmoil.
That's chilling. And it's even more so when you consider those early letters he sent to the police calling himself the Phantom of the Bronx. You can practically sense this need for attention, for recognition in those letters.
And that need for recognition, that craving for infamy,
Yeah.
it's a huge red flag when we talk about the psychology of serial killers. It speaks to a deep-seated narcissism, this belief that their actions, no matter how horrific, are justified because they make them feel important, powerful.
And that need for control, that craving for recognition, it builds until that hot summer night in July 1976. Donna Loria, just 18, shot and killed while sitting in a parked car with her friend Jody Valenti.
This is where it all begins, right?
Right. The .44 caliber killer enters the scene. It's interesting, though, this wasn't Berkowitz's first attempt at killing.
That's right. Before the .44, before the Son of Sam, there was a knife attack.
Really?
Yeah, much more up close and personal, and honestly, kind of messy.
I can see how that wouldn't satisfy whatever urge he had.
Exactly. It seems like that didn't give Berkowitz the sense of detachment, the sense of power that he craved. The gun, the .44, it really shook the city. The brutality of that first shooting, the choice of weapon.
So the gun, the distance it created, that gave him a feeling of control that the knife couldn't.
Precisely. Firearms, they create a physical and psychological barrier. Especially for someone like Berkowitz, who we can assume struggled with feelings of inadequacy, a volatile temper. A gun in his mind could have been like an equalizer, a way to control the situation from a distance.
Yeah, it's terrifying, but I can see how it makes a grim kind of sense. And then over the next year, a pattern emerges, right? More attacks, always young couples, parked cars, late at night.
And the randomness of his victims, the locations, there was no connection that the police could find. Berkowitz was effectively holding all of New York City hostage.
Just think about that. The entire city is on edge, living in fear. And then on top of it, you've got the media frenzy, the headlines just fueling the fire.
Absolutely. People were terrified, especially women,
Yeah.
changing their appearances, avoiding going out at night. And then, as if things couldn't get more intense, Berkowitz injects himself into the narrative in the most chilling way. The Son of Sam letters.
Those letters, hello from the gutters. Those words still send chills down my spine, but those weren't just confessions, were they? He was taunting the police, playing this twisted game with the media, with all of New York.
He was playing the role, basking in the attention, that notoriety. He even sent letters directly to journalists like Jimmy Breslin at the Daily News.
Oh, wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, taking a page straight from the Zodiac Killer's playbook. And the thing is, by inserting himself into the story this way, he's attempting to control the narrative even as his own life, his own mind is spiraling.
And he was so specific in those letters. What will you have for July 29th? It's like he was playing with fire, literally. But there's also this bizarre attempt at an alibi in those letters. He blames Sam, this demonic dog, for his actions.
Well, that's what makes those letters so fascinating, how Berkowitz uses language. On the one hand, he's crafting this almost fantastical alibi to distance himself from these horrific crimes. But on the other hand, those letters, they reveal a mind that is obsessed with death, a mind consumed by a darkness.
And desperate for any kind of recognition.
Exactly.
It's almost hard to believe that after all that, it was a parking ticket that brought the whole thing crashing down. A parking ticket? Can you imagine?
It wasn't just the parking ticket, though it's pretty incredible that it played a part at all. There was also an eyewitness who remembered seeing Berkowitz acting very agitated after receiving it.
Oh, wow. So just a small detail that ends up being a huge break in the case. It's amazing how those insignificant moments can sometimes make all the difference.
Absolutely. Those little things can be crucial. And when they finally caught up with him, in his yellow Ford Galaxy, they found the .44 Bulldog revolver, the maps of the crime scenes, even a letter addressed to the head of the Son of Sam task force.
He was caught red-handed, so did he finally break down to confess?
His reported words were, "Well, you got me." And then, almost boastfully, he asked, "How come it took you so long?" But even with all the evidence, he still clung to this delusional narrative, this demonic dog, voices in his head.
So even after they find him surrounded by evidence, he's still trying to create this distance between himself and his crimes. Was he truly delusional, or was this a calculated act from a master manipulator? It's almost like he wanted to be both the notorious Son of Sam, but also be completely free from any blame all at the same time.
It's a strange dichotomy, isn't it? And honestly, it's one that investigators have grappled with for years. Did Berkowitz truly believe these outlandish claims, or was he trying to manipulate the system, trying to escape the consequences?
Right, because on one hand, you have a guy who is clearly seeking attention, who seems to thrive on the chaos and the fear he's created. But on the other hand, he's claiming to be a pawn in some larger, even more sinister game.
And that's what makes the Son of Sam case so fascinating, so disturbing. Because we may never truly know the answer. Was Berkowitz a cunning mastermind, or a deeply disturbed individual caught in the grip of delusion?
So what happened after his arrest? Did he go to trial?
He actually pled guilty. No big courtroom showdown, no insanity plea. Which, in a way, I almost find more unsettling.
Really? How so?
Well, think about it. This is a man who, up until this point, craved attention. He fed off of it. A trial would have been the ultimate stage for him. By pleading guilty, it's almost as if he denied himself that.
That's a really interesting take. It's like, in a way, by not giving him that big public platform, the justice system was able to deliver a punishment that truly fit the crime.
Exactly. And he was sentenced to 365 years, effectively a life sentence.
A long time to reflect on those horrific acts. But then the story takes yet another turn. While in prison, Berkowitz changes his tune again. He claims to have been part of a satanic cult all along, that he wasn't acting alone in those shootings. Did investigators ever find any proof to support that?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? There have been countless independent investigations, books, documentaries, you name it. People have been trying to get to the bottom of this for decades. But still, no concrete proof has ever emerged to definitively confirm or deny Berkowitz's claims of a larger conspiracy.
So what are we left with? Another layer of mystery in a case that already has more twists and turns than a Hollywood thriller. It's like even after all these years, after his capture, after his conviction, the Son of Sam still holds us captive in a way.
And that's what's so fascinating about this case. It continues to spark debate, to fuel our imaginations. The Son of Sam shadow still hangs over the city, a chilling reminder that sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones we can't fully understand.
And on that note, we'll leave you with the lingering mysteries of the Son of Sam case. Be sure to check out the show notes for more information on this case, including photos, links to articles, and more. We'll be back next week with another deep dive into a new case. Until then, thanks for listening.